So what that mass planting doesn't tell us, though, is that what individuals are inside of that. Do we have what's the scientific name on these individuals, and some other information about them that we might want to know. So to do that, we put some plant centers in there. And usually we'll use plant centers to denote a tree, such as where my cursor is right now. You could make that out as an individual tree, so I could just grab a tree and put that in there. In the case of a mass planting, we just want to put, we don't know exactly where the center of these plants are, so we're just going to put one dot for each species that resides inside this polygon, simply inside the polygon, just to associate the two together. So we're going to have a couple shrubs in here, so I'm going to grab shrub and just put it in somewhere in the middle of the polygon. And with points, it's really easy. You just click on the map and they're in there, and it brings up the attributes window. So this is the first plant center we've entered, so we'll give it an ID of 1. And it's already got the type in there for us. If you know the accession number of this plant, you can type that in now. I happen to know the accession number for this one is in our kind of local format here. And your accession numbers will likely vary, but the field can accommodate whatever you'd like. If you use BGBase, you notice there's a field here for qualifier, which is basically says that this is you know, the 10th plant with this accession number, which we'll go ahead and use that. You can also set this number to be the same as the plant center ID if you don't use a qualifier, or you can just leave it blank, whatever fits your needs. So I happen to know that the genus of this plant, being in the Ericaceae family, is Arctostaphylos. And the species we're going to put in for this one is Sakurai. And there's some other fields for different taxonomy if any of these things apply. If you have a infraspecific epithet or a cultivar or trade name, you can enter all that information here. And then there's a field for a concatenated scientific name. So even though we have a separate field for genus and species, it's always a good idea to type in the full name of the plant in this one field, so that can be used for labeling and quick lookup. So I'll type that in again. And then there's a field for plant size. Now, because we're drawing a polygon around this group of plants, we're not necessarily interested in the size of the individual. So if this were a single tree, we'd put in the canopy diameter for the plant, or if you want to measure it as canopy radius, you can do that as well. And this field can be used to scale the size of your tree symbols on the map, which is really handy. So, but because this is part of a mass planting, we always want to put in 0 for those, because we're not interested in the size of it, because it's already delineated on our map. So by putting in 0, this tells the data model that it's definitely a mass planting, and it's going to give it a certain kind of label, so that it, which we'll see later, so that it differentiates between mass plantings and plant centers. You can select the units for the type of measurement. So if you're doing a tree, you want to use inches or feet or miles. If that suits you best, you can select that from the drop-down list. So here, there's a section name field. Again, we can select South Ericaceae and the collection. It's in the Ericaceae collection. If you use a grid cell system at your garden, there's a field here for you to put in what's grid cell that's in. Later, we can calculate latitude and longitude values so that you can share your data over the internet. And then there's a survey date field again. So today's date we'll put in there. And the username, that's me. And then there's some update fields just as we had before. And there's a status field here for the status of the plant. And it always defaults to alive, assuming that you're only mapping alive plants. But it also has a value for dead and a value for removed. And now with dead and removed, you can do what's called a definition query in the Arc map table of contents here. So I could go double click on Plant Center when I'm done with this. Can't do it now. And I can select that it only show me plants that are alive. And this gives you the option to basically track your dead or removed plants in the event that they come back later. And then you can just turn them back on by changing the status. At the bottom of the attributes window here, we have some IDs for linking this to other features. And because we know that this plant center is in our first mass planting, by putting in the number 1 here, we'll link these together so that when we click on the mass planting, it will bring up the centers associated with it. And thus, we'll be able to get the taxonomy on the plants that reside inside that polygon. Okay, so that's the last thing we're going to enter here. We're going to hit OK, and our point is created. And just to practice, we'll go through and do one more of these. We know there's another species of Arctocephalus inside this mass. We said there were 2 species in there. So we'll grab shrub again. And we'll just put another point arbitrarily inside the polygon. Now this is our second plant center, so we'll type in 2. We'll go a little faster on the input of attributes on this one. And if you have a qualifier, you can put that in. And the genius on this. And this species on this one is different. And we'll type in the scientific name. As it is concatenated. And because it's part of a mass, we'll put in a size of 0. And we know that it's in our South ArcgIS section. And it's part of our ArcgIS collection. And we'll put in a date that it was surveyed today. And my name, already alive. And we'll put in the number 1 for the mass planting ID to link it to the polygon. Okay. Now, another thing we might want to do here is label these plants. So right now this plant is selected. If I go to this plant center annotation layer that we have here, this is a layer that will store labels that can be used for creating maps. Now in ArcMap there's 2 different ways for dealing with labels. ArcMap can create dynamic labels for something by, if you right click on it and you hit label features, it'll create dynamic labels for you. And those dynamic labels will move all around depending on what's on the map so that the labels don't block anything. But with plants, our maps are going to be very complex. There's going to be a lot of things on the map, so you need to have more control over your labels. So we use what's called annotation, which are fixed labels that you can put in a fixed position and they won't move. Now if I want to create a label for this plant that's selected, I can right click on Plant Center Annotation. Actually, excuse me, right click on Plant Center and go to the selection menu and then put Annotate Selected Features. And it brings up this window that says what type of annotation you want to create. And because we know that this is a mass planting, we're going to put it in the mass planting group here. And this will make a certain type of label that you can differentiate plantings that are part of a mass versus plantings that are individuals. So we hit OK, and then you can see it's created this label. If we grab the zoom in tool here, you can zoom in and see that it's put the scientific name from the scientific name field plus the accession number on the map for us. If we want to do that for this other feature, we can simply click on it, make sure it's selected here, do the same thing, right click on Plant Center, go to the selection menu, hit Annotate Selected Features, and this is also a mass planting. Click OK, and there you go, there's a label for it. So pretty simple. We've already defined rules in the data model to create these labels for you. And you can go through and change the look and feel of these labels and what information is displayed in our catalog. I want to show you a few cool little things that the data model can do for us. So if we zoom all the way back out to the full extent of our data and grab the Edit tool from the Editor toolbar, we want to select our section boundary here and hit the Attributes button on the Editor toolbar to bring up some information about it. So now we can see that we have our South ArcgIS feature for our section. If we click the plus icon, we can see that we have our southwest, southeast, and bank features inside of it for planting areas. If we expand the southwest feature, we can see that we now have 2 plant centers inside of it, and yours may have the numbers 3 or 2 instead of the scientific names, and you can change that display property by double-clicking on Plant Center here and going to Display and changing the display expression field from maybe cultivar name as its default to scientific name. And you may have to click off and re-click on the section name to get these names to show up properly for you. So now, what we're seeing here is that we can click on section and we can find out all the planting areas that are inside of it. We can find out all the plants that are inside that planting area. And then additionally, if we expand these, we can also find out what mass planting that these plants are part of. So essentially all this information is linked together, and it gives you the ability to find out all types of things just by building simple relationships between them. So now we can click on each one of these things, find out information about that mass planting. We can find out all the information about this particular plant center and so on. So pretty neat way of being able to link data together and being able to access it. So that's pretty much going to conclude our work on digitizing features. And there are many more features in the data model, but they pretty much all operate in the same way. There are features that are linked together that will let you kind of build relationships and have this kind of functionality where you can find out information about one thing by clicking on another. And they will have similar fields in them to define the type of information we're collecting about it here. Oops, I just docked this toolbar. So to finish up our work, we're going to select the editor menu here, stop editing again, save our edits, then I'll close the palettes on the side, and then we're going to save our map document one more time, and we're going to close ArcMap. And that will conclude Lesson 3. So today we learned how to digitize base map and plant features using the ArcGIS Public Gardens data model. And we took a brief tour of some more of the features and functionality that the data model has to offer. Next time we're going to learn how to prepare for collecting data out in the field using Esri's ArcPad mobile software. See you next time.